Hi, and welcome to another episode of Crushing It with Your Tribe. And I'm excited because this woman has been in my tribe for some time, and she has created something that I find absolutely amazing. She created Feeding Faith, and it's a mission in Guatemala, and she's going to tell us all about it. Stay tuned.
As a Texas realtor, Robin McCoy is in the unique position to meet and know so many different people in a wide range of industries. These people are her tribe, and she leverages them not only to help her business, but to help theirs as well. Welcome to Crushing It with Your Tribe, where we share real talk about building business and life relationships. Here is your host, Robin McCoy.
Hi, everyone. Robin McCoy back with another episode of Crushing It with Your Tribe. And today we are going back in my tribe to a lot of years ago with Kristen Crisp. And she is going to talk to us about a nonprofit that she has created, implemented, and continues to do, not here in the United States, but in Guatemala. So a little bit about Kristen. She's a longtime retail manager, visual designer. I knew her back at Crate and Barrel days, if you know me. Kristen spent more than 30 years in these fields before making a gradual switch to the wellness industry in 2008. A yoga instructor, personal trainer, and life coach, she has a strong passion for helping and healing those who are struggling to heal themselves. And she has worked the past few years in depth with special needs populations such as developmentally disabled and the elderly. Kristen began participating on week-long mission trips in 2016, and shortly after that, she and her husband, Julian, felt that they were called to go help underserved populations full-time, thus their mission, Feeding Faith. And this was born, and they relocated to Guatemala in early 2020. So it's been just over 3 years.
Yes, it has. Thank you for having me. It's funny when you say early 2020, it's like a flood of memories comes back. So just
Sure.
I will just jump onto that very quickly, but then I can tell you how this got to where it is. But yes, we moved March 2020. So literally we landed in Guatemala about 7 days before the world closed.
Wow.
So
if you had gone 2
2
weeks later, this would not have happened, at least not when it did.
Correct. Yeah, we had everything planned up to this point. We had already sold our house. We were living in an apartment temporarily. At that point, our things had already shipped. We were living any more minimally than you can possibly imagine, like air mattress. I think we had our mattress up until 2 days before we left. We gave it to the person we sold it to, that kind of thing. So we already had the plans in motion. And of course, At that point, people were talking about this pandemic like, it's not going to happen, or it's not really a big deal. It's not going to happen to us. Yeah. It'll be over in 2 weeks. It was not. So
it was not.
Yeah.
So like I said, Kristen and I have known each other for a number of years. We both worked at Crate and Barrel at the same time back in that past life. And so tell me how, I know you were a yoga teacher, you had your own studio, and then I watched Kristen on Facebook start selling off all her stuff, her house, and saying she and Julian were going to Guatemala. So tell me how you get from that to there.
So what happened was Julian was the first one that went on the week-long mission trip. He was the one within the church that we were going to that, felt like he was interested when they started talking about we're going to Guatemala. So that's just the short version there.
Sure.
I went the following year, and it really wasn't until, I want to say maybe even the year after that all of a sudden he said, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I should be helping the people in Guatemala. And I said, well, we go we go on these trips.
Every year.
He's like, well, right, we go every year. And he said, well, I feel like I should live there. So, and I just kind of looked at him and I said, well, you could go right ahead because I don't have any interest in living in Guatemala. And so the conversations kind of just organically grew from that. And I, perfectly honest, it was challenging because we weren't on the same page right off the bat. I knew after going on these trips that it was definitely something I wanted to continue doing, and that I also wanted to do it in a bigger capacity. But at that time, I didn't necessarily think this is what I want to do like full time for my whole life, much less relocating to the general population will say it's a third world country, but the PC thing to say is a developing country.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, again, really the Cliff Notes version was once we were on the same page about doing it, which did take us about I would say about 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years to really get to where,
we both felt comfortable.
We're like, okay, let's do this. And, I'm not somebody that likes to sit still. I've moved several times. I've lived in Dallas, Chicago, Florida. I've moved around, so I'm not afraid of change. So I was like, all right, let's try it. Let's do it. We're not getting any younger. Because at this point, 2020, we were both 51, I think, 51, So,
and it's like, if we're not going to do it now, we're probably not ever going to do it.
Correct. And everybody thought we were crazy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a crazy idea, right? I mean, yeah, it is kind of a crazy idea, but it doesn't make it a bad one just because it's a little crazy.
I think people, especially if people are really rooted where they are, and it's not a bad thing or a good thing, it's just everyone's different. And
sure.
There's people who are rooted in, their town or their city or wherever, and that's where they want to stay the rest of their life. That's fine. And so obviously we're all different. When I moved to Chicago from Dallas at 38, people thought I was crazy. So, big life changes make people think you're crazy.
Yeah, they do. Because again, that's oftentimes their own, like, I could never do that. So therefore you're crazy.
Yes.
And that's all
and when your mind is that of somebody like myself, I think I'm pretty right-brained. I guess, is it right-brained? It is.
I never know if it's right or left.
I think right is creative and left's analytical. And in some respects, I'm very much in the middle, but I am more lean towards the right side with creativity and things organically. I'm a yoga instructor. I still am a yoga instructor, but, so there's that hippy dippy side of me that's fluid. So like I said, for me, it was not, the moving part wasn't really, the relocating part wasn't really the issue. I would say the harder part was selling everything. Yeah. Not the house. It was the contents. I was, I have collections and heirlooms and things that have history and
have meaning to you.
That was really difficult. Honestly, I mean, I know we're probably getting off the whole why we went, but boy, that part of it was very difficult. And now,
but that's part of it too, right? It's like, how do you do it? Well, you've got to sell everything because you can't take a Dallas suburban home and move that somewhere, right?
Well, you can. I think it's the cost. It's also, again, so let me give you a little bit more of like what we are. So Feeding Faith, we are a 501c3. We're a humanitarian and Christian aid mission. Okay. So we do humanitarian work under, we'll say the umbrella of Christianity. We do go and evangelize and pray with people, and we try to convert people and disciple to people. So we, started doing this under a church, but we also know that, in order to be able to try to do those things with people, going back to the old mission days of like Livingston, people were macheteing through the woods with a Bible and just like, brimstone and fire. And that, doesn't really work as much in modern day. And, and honestly for us, the humanitarian side was just so important because there's so many issues in countries like this that have no safety nets. Right. So we have several programs in place, which we could talk about in a second, but, so like I said, we sold everything we had and we moved to Guatemala. There you go.
So you had to set up this 501c3 before you left. You created,
that didn't happen. Well, no, it's okay. That was a process. So that was in motion before we left.
Okay.
The 501c3 didn't actually get, I want to say it all literally went through an approval at the end of 2020 because of course everything also got shut down and changed. So we were working through our church in the US. We were working with some people down here while everything was in motion. Okay. And then everything became in motion. So we were always Feeding Faith. We were always independent in that respect, but we were kind of working in tandem with groups and people, and we no longer are. But so we're totally independent of that at this point. So so we're, like I said, we are the 501c3, and we have been since that point.
Okay, so what is your mission?
Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the bustling DFW area? Look no further, because I am Robin McCoy, your trusted real estate agent with Keller Williams Realty. For over 15 years, I've been helping buyers and sellers navigate the real estate market here in DFW. So whether you're looking for your dream home or aiming to sell your property for the best price, relax. I got this. As a seasoned professional, I'll guide you through the entire process, ensuring a smooth and stress-free experience. I understand that buying or selling a home can be a significant decision. That's why I pride myself on providing exceptional customer service. I'll be with you every step of the way, answering your questions and addressing your concerns. So why take a chance with just any real estate agent? Choose me, Robin McCoy, the professional who has proven my excellence in helping both buyers and sellers in the DFW area for over 15 years. Call me today at 214-226-3770 or visit my website at robinmccoyrealty.com. Let's make your DFW real estate dreams come true. Relax. I got this.
Okay, so what is your mission? What is it?
Well, so our mission really is to, is to help the underserved populations to be able to evangelize to people, to bring them to Christ, and to do it in a way that's also going to put some sustainability in place. So one of the things that we see, and all missions are different, all groups are different. There's a lot of, I am saying it, Band-Aids on broken legs. There's a lot of giving without a long-term sustainability for the humanitarian
that happens a lot, right?
I
think that's a lot of it, because money can come in, but if there's not a plan for the money, then it's a short-term fix.
Right. And so once we actually really got on our own, as far as being here and not working side by side with anybody, we kind of were like, what is it that we're going to do here? We know that people need medical and food and this, that, and the other. And so we just kind of sat back and just started letting God, it come. The world, the vibes come in to say, this is what you should be doing. And early on in January of 2021, we kept getting all these messages about water. And to the point where, we'd go somewhere and somebody would say, yeah, this village really needs water. Or then we'd go somewhere else, or we'd be at a church service, and all of a sudden they'd be doing a message about the living water, but they'd be talking to children. So they'd be talking about the use of water for hygiene, for food, for cooking, blah, blah, blah. And my husband and I would look at each other and be like, across the room, like, water, again, water. Maybe we're supposed to be doing something with this water thing.
Yeah.
So that was really our first main campaign on for feeding faith. As I said, when we were working, we did some really amazing things prior to that, through the pandemic, because that was, like I said, that's a whole episode in itself. But
how do you begin, sustain, and do mission work like that during a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic? Yeah,
exactly. I will actually go ahead and answer that question. What the sustainability at that point was not an issue. It was more, we need to get some food into people. We need to go help people, because people are literally starving to death because there was no safety net. So if you want, I can kind of just give you a coverage a little bit of the pandemic. So we moved here March 2020. Got our house set up, so to speak, found a place to live, got the phones, got the bank account, just trying to go, okay, where are we? What's happening here? And 7 days later, I believe it was, maybe 10, it's such a blur now. The world closes, country closes, the borders close, people are freaking out. When are you coming home? And so we just kind of went, well, we don't have a home. This is our home.
This is it now. Yes.
This is our home. We sold our house. We have a 5-foot storage unit in Gainesville, Florida that has some tools and a couple boxes of, random memorabilia in it.
Yeah.
Literally and so we were like, and they were sitting at that point, you could get on a Mercy flight to go back to the States, but
Right.
we didn't know what that would look like. And literally, we've immigrated our cats here. So
Yeah.
we're here. We're here. And so 2 things. One was the people here. When it started happening, it got to the point where everything's closed. You can't leave your house. We had a 4 p.m. curfew for 9 months. So you had to be home by 4 o'clock every day. And throughout the summer, we had probably 9 weekends where we had full weekend closure. You had to be in the house by 5 p.m. on Friday, and you couldn't leave till 5 a.m. on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. And then, there was no stimulus checks. So people, especially in the village, and I say the village, there's poverty everywhere. This is not just out in the mountains. It's more extreme in the mountains, but it's literally like right behind my house, I can see tin huts.
Yeah.
The class level is all intermixed. It's very crazy. So if people couldn't work, they couldn't eat. And people started waving, I use my cliche, they were waving white flags. They were literally like hanging white flags outside of their house, which means we're starving. We have nothing. It was like a surrender to whoever will see it. And people be like standing on the streets, like waving flags, like we need help. We haven't had food in 3 days.
Yeah.
So we had what was called the White Flag Campaign, and we raised funds and started, bagging up bags of corn and beans and putting together just pasta, salt, oil, things that were very basic foods, supplies, and going out to super remote villages with the people that we were working with that have been here for decades.
Right.
And we were out way out if we could get into the village, because the villages, some of them have what's called cocote, which is like their local militia that would have it closed off. They wouldn't let anybody in or out, So we did that. We probably handed out 2,000 bags of food, I think, during that time.
Wow.
Just going around doing that. So
there
was not really a sustainability concern at that point. It was
just keep people alive.
Correct. That was definitely just a quick age. That was let's do this and do it now.
Yeah.
And I will say, on the side of the pandemic, I honestly think, and this is whatever your belief system is everything happens for a reason. God puts you in a right place where he wants you, whatever you believe in. I think that was truly our situation, because when we started coming back to the States, and even when we went over to England to see Julian's family, we were almost taken back by how people had been affected through the pandemic, because we didn't experience it the same way, like living in our own homes, having to like stay home and be with each other. We're all together all day anyway, but I'm saying, so we didn't have, we just got into this new experience where we knew nothing different. So I think for us, it was almost a blessing, because we just were like, all right, let's just roll with it.
This is the way this is.
This is the way it is.
Try and keep the people in the United States in their homes after 4 and for complete weekends. People rebelled as it was. There'd be no 4 o'clock curfew.
Yeah. And that's what's so different here too. Again, I don't want to get off track, but I mean, the people and the issues of people is so different.
Yeah.
And it is interesting going back to the States now, when you're going back as a visitor and seeing the shift that's happened culturally in the States. It's got to be pretty, like, I mean, it's probably shocking. Very obvious to you, right? I mean, it's probably just, for us that live here every day, and it's just the way it's just like anything else. When you're in the middle of it, you don't realize it, but when you come back and see it, it's got to be pretty shocking. Very shocking. It's very shocking. And to the point that there have been a couple trips, which I never thought. And now let me preface this statement with, I love my country, being the United States of America. I love my American citizenship and all that comes with it. And I love my country and I love my people. But to see it now from this angle and coming back, and especially with like the inflation and the way that people are like the infighting, I don't have an interest in moving back.
Yeah.
At this point. And I have been there several times and been kind of like, I'm just ready to get back to Guatemala. And I never, ever thought I would say that.
Yeah.
I never thought I would say that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and, kind of getting back to the mission and what you're doing there. I mean, that has got to be just, I've been on a couple of been on mission trips, and do things in my community, and it makes you feel worthy, I think. Like, it does. It makes you feel like you're contributing back and you're worthy to be a human being. But I can't imagine what it must be like living in that developing country, knowing that there's people behind you that may not have clean water, and being there to do your best to change the direction of their lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, I think even what we do is a Band-Aid. We're not going to necessarily make generational change on our own. We're small. It's just myself, my husband. We have a volunteer that works with us most of the days. And then we have people who come and go, as we need them to help out. But, but we feel like we are making some change, and we're showing some love to people who may not see that. We're also showing. So what we do, let me tell you about the water program. So we have a couple different programs, but I'll kind of elaborate because I'm very ADD, so I'm jumping all over the place. I'm going to focus myself back in.
Let's talk about the water and know that this is kind of what you do.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the water.
Yes. All right, let's talk about the water. So the water program, like I said, it kind of grew organically. And so we were like, we need to bring water to people, in a nutshell. When we moved here, shortly after that, a very good friend of ours here introduced us to his sister-in-law, who runs a facility that brings groups in. So it's like a camp, we'll say. It's kind of like a Christian camp. And so little groups come in there and do mission work and whatnot. It's mostly locals because they don't have AC. We're like, the Americans aren't going to stay places without AC at this stage. I joke when I say that, but it's true. Yeah. So and they have a water purification plant on site. That was something that was brought in and donated from a church or somewhere in the United States. So she showed us all of this months before the notes, that's not the word, like where the, all of the words of water came to us. So when it all happened, we were like, oh, hey, we know someone, we know a girl. So we started talking to her, and they produce water there in 5-gallon water bottles, kind of like your Culligan or whatever you have in the States now. So we started there. And then we went back to the fact that we had a pastor who said, the biggest problem here is the water, the drinking water. Now, just to be clear, nobody has drinkable water in their homes. Like we live in, we have a nice house that we rent. There's a well system in the community. We do not drink the water that comes out of the tap. We use the 5-gallon water bottles. Nobody drinks the water that comes out of their tap. Municipal water is not drinkable if you have municipal water. So again, we are on a well system here. Some people, like in the city we live in, use municipal water, which is not 24/7. It comes on a couple days a week, should come on a certain time. It may or may not come on at the right time. It may not come on for very long. It's all over the place. So, so if you're not on a well and you're actually paying for municipal water, it's just touch and go.
It's random.
None of it's drinkable. And then when you start getting further out into your villages, your mountains, there's just no water. People don't have water. Right. So they don't drink it. They might get some from a source, like there might be a community well type around to get something for cooking purposes. But again, there's some that just don't have any. So we started working with this pastor. And again, I'll make my long story shorter, but we started asking for donors and literally started, I think, with 5 or 10 families and just got donations coming in. And our price, it's $30 a month or $360 a year. And that sponsors a family for 1 year. And what that does is we bring 2 5-gallon water bottles per household, and each bottle sustains 2 people with drinking water for a week. So we literally are like the water delivery service.
Yeah.
We are the
Yeah.
Culligan people, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we give them water education classes as well that go along with that. So we bring everybody together in the village, and we have local people that teach those. So it's coming from their community, not from us.
Right.
We're more of a support system. You know, we feel like it's important that the community is the one supporting each other, and we're kind of just in the back burner.
Sure.
It's not all coming from the white man, so to speak.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
not like these people who are strange are coming in telling us what to do and why
Right.
to do it. So everything comes from either a church leader, a community leader, or, you know, people within the community. So yeah, so they get the water, they get education, and then we're there every week. We do wellness checks. If there's needs, you know, we see if it's something we can help with, or if we can't, then we try to raise funds for it. We pray over people, we pray with them. I mean, that's kind of the package in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And we, you know, we've seen so much change in the health, especially of kids, because a lot of them have parasites. A lot of people here have parasites because they will use the water for something.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll use it for something, or it doesn't get boiled enough if they're using it. And so it's just everybody, not everybody, but a lot of high percentage.
Well, how do people, okay, so they have no viable drinking water, especially the people, like you said, out in remote areas.
Yeah.
I mean, the body needs hydration.
Needs water. Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
You know, I'm a little perplexed that unless somebody's bringing them water in,
right?
How does that? How do they literally stay alive?
They will literally be dehydrated, or a tienda, which is basically like a tiny little corner store, so to speak.
Okay.
Is we'll call it your 7-Eleven, but it literally can be something, somebody can open their front door and put a sign on it that says I'm a tienda and sell stuff out of their house. So they're literally like every 2 feet. Tiendas are every 2 feet, and they're all selling the same stuff. They're selling they're selling chips, they're selling sodas, they're selling a few a few supplies for cooking. They'll sell eggs. They sell pot, so like a few convenience foods. So there is an extremely high soda consumption amongst people, even if they don't really have a lot of money, because that's what they will drink, because they don't have the water. They'll go buy the dirt cheap soda. And if you want to buy, soda is cheaper than water in some respects. So there's part of your problem right there.
Yeah.
Your cheap big cola, as it's called, which is your generic Coca-Cola, is, you know, it might be 1 Q for a bottle, which is like 13 cents. So it's extremely cheap. And there's a massive amount of sugar consumed by everybody.
Yeah.
So I want to get a trail off of the health problems.
Is that just
it's because of the sugar consumption. You got everybody's like missing teeth and diabetic, and, you know, between the regular diet and how there's so many carbs consumed that convert to sugar, and then the actual sugar consumption, it's crazy. But so the dehydration, like you were saying, is, you know, they'll use rainwater. They might catch rainwater. So going back to your question about where they get water, people will catch rainwater because, like you said, they have to cook.
I mean,
everybody drinks coffee. And here the coffee is heavily sweetened as well. It's extremely a lot of sugar because it's a flavor. Yeah. So it comes with a host of problems for sure.
So you guys, your organization takes in donations. Yes. You get the water from this plant, this processing plant?
All right. So we go pick up the water every week. We pick up the bottles. We take them back to the house, swap them out. So that's part of the responsibility. So back to the package is, they get the water every week. They get a dispenser. They get education, and then they get wellness checks. So that's basically what your $30 a month covers.
Right.
but that all of that, and then, we make them sign for the water. So we do make it so that there's accountability for it. And the fact that we're there every week puts an accountability on it, because there are missions that come in and they blast. And I'm not speaking of anyone in particular. It's just missions. As you've seen, you've been on week-long missions. You go in, you blast something, and you leave.
Yeah.
And that's great for certain things, but then there's also situations where there's no follow-up and there's no follow-through. And so that's just the way that we felt like whatever we do, we want to make sure that we're present. We're not just like, here's this free thing. It was nice meeting you. Mucho gusto. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So we're there every week. And so now the long-term plan became, as this organically grew, we got connected with a company in California called Living Waters of the World. No, I'm going to confuse myself because there's two companies. I'm so embarrassed. Living Water World Missions. We got connected with them. They do all their fundraising in the States for water plants, and then they bring them and install them down here.
Okay.
Because we are already here, we basically can give them locations to put their water plants in. So it was this really great, beautiful marriage that just happened about a year ago. So the very first village we went to, we got to where we were giving water to about 30 families. We got the hookup with Living Water, and then raised funds for the facility, got the facility built, and then Living Water comes down and installs all of the innards, the whole plant. Right. They bring all the equipment down and install the plant. So now that village has a pastor that's running the water plant. He's employing people. He's donating what we were donating to those families. And then he's selling the rest in the community to make money to cover his overhead. And
so you don't have to travel to that particular village anymore.
No,
because now they are self-sustaining that piece.
Yes, correct.
So and now you can take your stuff and go to the next village and help those people.
Yes.
Be the leader you know you can be. Build your professional network and access education that takes you where you want to go. We are women of all ages and backgrounds. You deserve national recognition and opportunities to build relationships with people you want to work and grow with. Hit the ground running with the Charisma chapter of the American Business Women's Association. Meetings each month from 6 to 8:30 p.m. on the fourth Tuesday in Farmers Branch, Texas, and online. Come with us. Experience ABWA for yourself. Go to charisma.abwa.org to learn more.
So and now you can take your stuff and go to the next village and help those people.
Yes, exactly. That's what we did. So we took the money and the donations that were going in there and went to the next village and started again. And so now we are in 2 villages. They're a little smaller than where we were. So we have it split up, and we're always looking for new donors because there's more people that need water. So basically we're capped out at this point until we get more donors. Basically as many donors as we get is how much water we give out. And at this point, both of those villages have had Living Water World Missions come out and assess them to see if they're viable, like if the water's okay, if the wells are going to be okay, if the land's going to be okay. And they've been basically given the thumbs up. So it looks like we're like right on the cusp of saying it, but I'm not saying it. I think
I'm going to speak it into the universe.
We're speaking it in the universe. Exactly. Speaking it into fruition is that, we should be opening 2 more water plants next year is our plan.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
Let's shout about that. That's awesome. Yeah. So where do you see this going? Do you see you and Julian spending the next 5 years, 10 years in Guatemala? Do you see it growing into, or staying kind of what it is today?
At this point, I would say we're staying as we are. Now, some people think that's crazy because there's, everybody thinks of growth. We all want growth. We all want something big. And what we have learned is that we like being able to go out and connect and do the work we're doing and be in the villages, talking to the people. That's where we feel like we're called to do. And as we've gotten a little bit bigger, because we do have a couple other programs I'll touch on, but that's more admin, that's more bookkeeping, that's more planning, that's more follow-up, that's more reconciling.
More fundraising because you've got to pay
more
people.
Fundraising. Yes, it's
know.
more marketing, and all of those things are basically like multiple full-time jobs.
Sure.
So, all of a sudden, I'm spending 40 hours in front of a computer versus being out in the mission field. And our goal has never really been to try to, we're not trying to be UNICEF or Save the Children or, World Vision or, we're not trying to become like a massive conglomeration.
You are boots on the ground. You are boots on the ground. We are
boots on the ground, grassroots.
In these communities.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine that you get to know, because I see the pictures on Facebook, right? You get to know the people and the children and all of these, because you're going to them every week and you develop relationships and trust. And I'm sure that's a huge piece of this is the trust of the people in these communities and in these villages that you are good people and you keep coming back. You keep showing up.
Yes. 100%, 110% what you just said. It is. That's because we don't go blazing in. And like I said, we've seen things happen and it's not so much, I don't want to say it damages things, but it causes chaos. It can cause resentment.
Disruption,
destruction. It like you said, it ruins the trust. It causes expectation can happen. We've seen that. You can get people because you're giving. And then if something happens, you don't have enough or and I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
I've seen it in our own programs. We've gone out and done feedings and there's a point where we run out of food and then you got people who are pissed off because
they didn't get any food or
right. And then you have to try to really explain, there's always a need for more and we only can do as much as we can do. And, hopefully next time when we come back, we'll have enough or, we'll try to come to you first or whatever the case may be, because you don't want disappointment. You don't want to disappoint anybody. I'd feed everybody if I could. But,
especially disappointing people when it comes down to feeding people.
Yeah, people.
There's disappointment in certain things, but not being able to feed someone that needs it is got to be heartbreaking.
Yeah. It is. And, it's interesting because since we've been here, we watch more world news channels now. And we don't watch U.S. news as a rule. I mean, we flick through stuff. We don't have cable. We tried to have an antenna for a hot minute, and it just didn't work. So we use YouTube streaming service for our news because there's, all of the news channels stream now. So we bounce around to a lot of different world news, and we will look at, something in the States, something in Europe, but then we watch global news, and it's just fascinating. Number one, to see how much more of the world is like this than the Western world.
Like this.
And like where you are. Exactly. It's shocking when you see how much conflict is going on, how much devastation is going on. I would say, I have no idea. I'm guessing 80-90% of the world is more like this than like, the first world countries. And with that said, when I watch things where there's a disaster and they're doing airdrops, and things like that happening, I get it. I get why people are fighting. And it's a horrible thing to see. And it's a horrible thing I've seen here. When we've gone through and you start handing things out, if you don't put people in order, chaos will happen like that. And people will turn on each other. I've seen people start to turn on their neighbors. And so you learn trial by error for sure.
But you also understand, you learn what the human, it comes down to the human needs, right? We need food, we need water, we need shelter. And if we don't have those, our instincts kick in because my baby doesn't have food.
And that's anywhere. And I think like you said, with the pandemic, I could see it happening anywhere. I could see the U.S. turning on each other. You saw that going on during the pandemic.
It's crazy.
People turning on each other. people didn't
It's
want to wear a
crazy.
mask and they were beating each other up over it. I mean,
It's insane.
like you said, it's humanity. It's seeing levels of humanity from different angles.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, tell me a little bit as we wrap up some of the other programs that you guys are doing there and how people can help you with your mission.
Absolutely. So we do water, soup, and stoves. So the soup program, we have a supplier that's local. It's local in Guatemala. They distribute dehydrated soup mix. It actually is made in Canada. So it's made in Canada, and then they ship all over the world. So it's not just Guatemala, but they ship this dehydrated soup mix all over the world. We're hooked up with the source here. So we get cases of that brought in that we bring in here. We distribute it to different places, different churches and centers that have needs where they're doing feeding centers. So we've got several places. There's a couple orphanages we give to. There's some women's shelters we give to. Here locally in our town with our church, which is Assembly of God, we go to the pastor's house every week and cook up a massive vat of the soup. And then we also just started getting what's called Manapack rice. So it's also a fortified rice. So now we've got soup and the rice. So that's enough. Just one meal is enough to give all the nutrition, the vitamins, supplements for a day. So that covers. So at this point, we cook all that up. We literally plate it all up, throw it in the back of our truck, and we drive through this very, very poor village that is like walking distance from my house. So down by the river, and we just distribute it to the kids and go down. And we do about 300 plates when we do each feeding. Yeah, that costs $50 a feeding. So if somebody wanted to just sponsor a feeding or more, they could do it that. So it's $50 a feeding, feeds 300 kids for that. And like I said, then the other stuff we get and we give it out. And that cost is they add meat. They add other vegetables. Again, we're getting the donations of the soup and the rice, but we're adding to it, and that covers the transportation and the workers. And it covers all of the expenses around it. But that feeds 300. So that's and that's really another thing that's kind of cool because again, we drive through the same village every week. They know us. You know, the relationship's not as intimate as our relationships with the water program, but it's definitely. They know us. They wait for us. Boy, when they see the red truck come in, they're like, literally, there's one house. If people are watching there, they'll see this, but like, there's one house, there's probably a 3-year-old. He like runs out in the middle of the street every week and like puts his hand out. Like, it's hysterical. Like, they know we're coming. Clearly they like the food.
Yes.
And then we have a stove program. We have a supplier, same thing. We bring in stoves. They're made of concrete block, and then they're also the internal part is made of fire brick. So when we go into a house in a village, 100%, I would say they're all on open fire. They're using fire that's built on the ground. They might have a drum. They may have stacked up some rocks and use a grate. So, but almost all the homes in the villages are used in open fire. Most of them are inside the house. So
it just sounds a little dangerous to me.
Yeah, most of them are inside the house with zero ventilation. So you've got this massive issue with smoke, with health problems, soot, etc. So the stoves cost $250. And what it does is we go in, we take the old one out, or we have them take it out before we get there, install the new one. Because it has the fire bricks, it contains everything inside. So all the heat stays within. The outside is cool to the touch, so no one's going to get burnt on the outside of the stove. It's very small. The firebox is small, so it only uses almost like kindling size wood, whereas they're used to using logs, and that costs money because technically you're not supposed to go chopping trees down here. It happens. Deforestation happens, but it's not supposed to. It's illegal. So, people either have to go out, gather their firewood, or they buy it from somebody who's putting it together, however they're putting it together. So it saves them money because they don't have to use as much wood. It saves the health of everybody in the house because most people have massive respiratory problems, especially the mothers who are the ones doing all the cooking. Yeah. And then it helps conserve, the forest, the deforestation problem. So it's kind of a threefold, and that's $250 a month.
Wow.
No, it's not a month. Excuse me, $250 per stove.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing to go just 3 years ago with this. All right, here we go. to 3 years later, that you've got these 3 programs that are making a difference to these people. Like you said, you're not going to change generations, but you're changing day to day and year to year. And I think that is how generational change happens.
It is. And when you're
caring about people, I'm just saying you're caring about people.
Well, in some things, it's interesting to see how giving somebody what we would say is one small thing. Okay. So we've got one home as an example. We've done a stove, and there's probably 12 people living in the house. I'd say probably 10 of them are kids, because those people have a lot of kids.
They have a lot of kids.
And then we were here with a group, and we noticed somebody pointed out, they said, what happened to their roof? And it was a plastic sheeting, and it was gone. So we went over there, and she said, oh yeah, it blew off in the storm. And somebody that was visiting said, let's see how much it would cost. Let's donate. I want to donate to help the roof. Well, we don't do much in the way of construction. Like, we're not house building, but we have done repairs. And recently, where some of the stoves have gone, they really needed to be in a better position, like kind of closer to an outside area. And what we've done is we've raised funds to build kind of like a lean-to, like just a little roof to go over that. So we've done a few things like that. We put a little roof over a stove. Because we did this roof repair on the house, it's like life-changing. When we go there now, the house is spotless.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The house is, not that it was, living in massive filth, but we're talking about a dirt floor and a hut.
Right.
Made of reeds, or maybe pieces of tin. But it seems like since the stove's been put in, the roof's been put on, now there's more things happening. Like, people are investing in them, and now they're investing in themselves.
Right. And I think that's true of people, right? Yes. Humans, as soon as, somebody cares and invests in them, then they feel like they can do it themselves, right? They take care about themselves a little bit more. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Kristen, how can people find you? How can they donate to you? How can they learn more about you?
So we have a website. It's www.feedingfaith.org. So that tells all about all of our programs. There's all the donate buttons are on there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel actually that has quite a few pretty cool videos that tell more in detail about the program. I would say if you're going to pick one of those, I would go to YouTube first so you can actually see us in action.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook probably the most, as far as just consistently in and out of each week. We're probably on there the most, but the YouTube channel has a lot of detailed videos.
Awesome.
On on everything we do.
Well, we're going to put all that, of course, in the show notes, so make it easy for people to find you. And I want to just thank you for coming on and sharing this with everyone. I think sometimes we get caught up in our own stuff and forget that is out there, that is,
exactly.
And that there are people that do need assistance and don't have all the luxuries that we might have here in Dallas, in the United States.
And I think that if there's one thing to take away, I would love for people to donate to us. Obviously, that's why I'm here. And I wanted to talk to you and see your lovely face. But I also think the message really is to just go out and help somebody.
Yeah.
Go help somebody, because there are plenty of people in the United States that need help. And again, that's another topic, because we've had that question asked to us, like, why don't you stay here? Why don't you? People, we've had angry people over that, over the move.
Yeah.
So, again, another time, another place, we can talk about that. But, there's plenty of things to do. So whatever your heart gets called to do, it doesn't have to be, it could be feeding people. It could be children. It could be animals. It could be the elderly.
Just
go do something.
The need is vast. The need is vast. So
yes.
And so there's a lot to choose from. So
exactly.
All right, Kristen. Well, thank you so much for taking the time all the way from Guatemala. I think you are our guest of furthest distance. So that is cool. That's a milestone for us here. So, and thank you everybody. Thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of Relax, I Got This. Go out, take a look at her videos, see where you can help in your corner of the world. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Crushing It With Your Tribe with Texas realtor Robin McCoy. Check out all the show notes for contact information on Robin and her guests and to access your free resources and information discussed on this episode. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a conversation. Thanks again, and we will see you next time on Crushing It With Your Tribe with Robin McCoy.